Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order at 7:06 PM. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A reading of meeting notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call attendance.
Yes, Mr. Walker, Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar, Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our agenda, I need a motion, please, to approve our minutes from our November 26, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Motion by Mrs. Rosella,
Yeah.
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Waka. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
I was not here, so I'm gonna.
and
I was absent as well. Sorry.
and Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Moving on to our superintendent's report from Ms. Diane Di Giuseppe.
Good evening. So couple of board meetings ago, I mentioned that I was going to be attending a workshop looking at teacher shortage and some opportunities to try to mitigate that in our district. And what I really found out is while we are experiencing the teacher shortage here, we are not experiencing anywhere near some of the other schools in the area and Morris County as well. Really, there are many schools out there that are actually providing instruction with a substitute in the classroom and kids on the on webinars or like Duolingo or Babbel for a lot of like world language classes. So while it's hit us, it's not hit us as hard as it's hit some others. But having said that, Dr. Miller and I met with the graduate school and undergraduate school at Montclair State and formed a partnership that will be taking on cohorts of interns into our schools. So we will in September take on 14 first-year interns, which means they're not really teaching interns, they are observers. They do 40 hours of observation across the year with our teachers. There might be some little teaching assignments, toward the end of the second semester. And then the following year, those students come back as clinical interns and do student teaching with our teachers here. In a way, when it's a nice partnership when a student spends 2 years in your district. And then if a job opens up and they're qualified and they're quality, we know them because we've done a full year, interview. So it should open up some opportunities for us. We have tomorrow and Thursday administrative professional development with our professional developer from Instructional Empowerment, Gwen Bryant. This is for our administrators to strengthen our inter-rater reliability, which means when you're observing teachers, you want everybody to be as close as they can with each other in terms of their understanding of how to roll the model out. So this will be, I believe, our 5th workshop sessions with Mrs. Bryant, and she's amazing, and our principals really like working with her. So and supervisors. Mrs. Ackerman, our director of school counseling, had a really interesting opportunity this past week, the end of last week, she attended the Naval Academy Workshop Centers of Influence. And what that is, each year, the Naval Academy hosts educators, community leaders, counselors, and other people in positions of responsibility to interact with um, um, I'm sorry, the people who do admissions at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. What they're looking for is to bring our best and brightest to the Naval Academy and to other military academies as enrollment in those schools drop off. They're very hard to get into. First of all, you need sponsorship, but this gives educators an insight on the admissions process, aspects of exceptional undergraduate education opportunities, academic, athletic, and residential facilities, meeting midshipmen, faculty and staff, and those career options that are available as an officer in the Navy or Marine Corps. She said it was an amazing 2 days. It was paid for by the Naval Academy. It's a selection process and application process, so we were very pleased that she was able to go and had a very great learning experience. Additionally, Mrs. Palmarisi and Mr. Merkler, as our school safety specialist, attended a school bomb threat processes and procedures workshop, and will be turnkeying that information with our principals and administrative assistants. I can't believe we're into December and we're about to embark on the holidays. We have obviously Christmas and Hanukkah coming up. We have the holiday shop. Our shops are opening at all 4 of our elementary schools. Holiday concerts are also taking place there this week. The Verona High School Chamber Choir is going to I'm sorry, the choir is going to be caroling at all 4 elementary schools, HBW, the town, hall, the public library, Clara Moss Hospital on December 19th. The high school holiday concert is on the 18th. On the 12th, the chamber group from HBW is going to Hillwood to do caroling there. On the 12th, thank you. On the 12th, of December, there is a program for the free application for federal student aid, AKA FAFSA, at the high school, and that's at 6:30 right here in this room in the Learning Commons. That's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Thank you. Moving on to our student report by Mr. Ryan Go. Thank you, Ryan.
Good evening. As Mrs. DiGiuseppe mentioned, December is now upon us, and we're now in the final stretch of the calendar year before the holiday break, which is quite insane. But since the last few weeks, VHS has accomplished and sponsored many great things, with of course more to come into the winter. Athletics-wise, we do have our first taste of our wonderful winter sports programs. With this week, yesterday there was a victory for ice hockey against Nutley, and today there were scrimmages both for basketball and winter track, and there is an upcoming swim meet in Newark this Thursday, December 12th. And this year, the Student Council is running our annual VHS toy drive up till the 16th of December for the Hawkins Street School in Newark. Toys for kids grades K through 4th will be collected in the VHS main lobby, and these toys should be wrapped with the intended gender for the toy, age group, and exactly what it is, with a range from $10 to $15. And they will not be accepting things like used toys, toy weapons, video games, and clothing. And I just think that this is honestly such a great thing to contribute to. It's a great program, and I do, of course, shout out Mrs. Enste and Hems for doing this every year. I just think it's fantastic that we, as VHS, can compassionately provide joy to others during such a festive time, per se. But our VHS Winter Spirit Week is going to run from the week of December 16th, which will feature a bunch of festive themes for our students to dress up as. And I'd just like to bring attention to the VHS Class of 2025 Decisions page on Instagram, which is sponsored by the VHS Yearbook, I believe. And it does feature the college commitments of our wonderful seniors. and it does definitely serve as a great way to see their accomplishments and congratulate them on an exciting future after high school. The newspaper has debuted the November edition of the Fair Viewer, and like all other editions, it's definitely worth a read and features a lot of interesting things about events at the high school, people, and student-created writings. December 7th, Saturday, was Verona's annual Fair in the Square, and the fair this year featured a performance from both our VHS cheerleaders and choirs. Last Saturday also featured a Model United Nations conference at the Masters School in Dobbs Ferry, New York, where 4 out of our 11 VHS delegates were accommodated with awards. And in the world of performing arts, last Tuesday, the VHS Chamber Choir had the honor to perform at Radio City before the Rockettes. And just to reiterate what Mrs. DiGiuseppe had already mentioned, next Wednesday, December 17th, is our VHS Winter Concert featuring our bands, choirs, and assorted ensembles. That is all. Thank you.
I was remiss in not mentioning the Rockettes. Mrs. Prisco was there, I was there, Mrs. Palmarisi was there, Mrs. Ackerman was there. It was just spectacular.
It was.
Dr. Miller was also there, Mr. Klug showed up. Really just an amazing opportunity for our students, and they performed, I think, the best I've ever seen them perform. Really great.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? Moving on to our presentations, we have our athletics director, Miss Laura Pomerese, to give our fall recap. Always so exciting. Thank you, Miss Pomerese.
Starting with the girls varsity soccer team. The team had an overall record of 13-7-1 and finished third in the SEC Liberty Division. The team amassed 54 goals, 39 assists for 147 points. The team's leading scorer was Victoria Niziolik, who had 24 goals, 9 assists, and a total of 57 points. Victoria will be continuing her academic and soccer career at Sacred Heart University. All conference recognition first team went to Victoria Niziolik and Molly Daggs. Emerson Garrett, Hayden Garrett, and Alexa Polanco were second team all conference. Noella Newman and Sophia Hippie were honorable mention. The team made it to the semifinals of the Essex County tournament and the state sectional finals. The boys cross country team showed phenomenal personal improvements throughout the season. The boys completed in 11 meets this season, and there were season bests for at least one of the runners in every one of those meets. The boys placed first place overall in the SEC batch meet number 3 by 1 point. Nick Fredette received honorable mention in the American Division. On to football. In his first season as head coach at Verona High School, Coach Monge and his staff led their team to a great season, building culture and a program that the Verona community is very proud of. The boys were in the weight room in January, training many days before school, where the team learned to rely on each other, push one another, and turn challenges into growth opportunities. They came together as a family with a lift-a-thon for one of our own, Daria, to help raise funds to support her journey. This summer, the team organized and ran a 7-on-7 hillbilly shootout tournament that brought 16 teams and 8 strongman competitors to Verona, showcasing not just our team, but our amazing facilities and community support. On the field, the Hillbillies finished the season with a 7-4 record and had their first playoff win since 2019, a milestone made even more memorable by winning at home. Football National Red Division, first team offense, Joel Gonzalez First team defense, Bodie Mazzano, Jaden Nigro, Gianluca Cicchetto, and Logan Nodig. Second team offense, Connor DeMasi. Second team defense, Michael Gergis, Sal Santos Tatrani, Dean Algieri, Jesse Wagner. An honorable mention went to Gavin Palmer. Michael Gergis was the recipient of the Super Football Conference 2024 Steve DiGregorio Young Man of the Year Award, where he was recognized at our last regular home season game, as well as the Jets versus Seahawks game. Our girls volleyball team finished with a record of 19-6, ranked in the top 20 in the state multiple times throughout the season, and finished as conference champions in the SEC American Division. The team were Essex County runner-ups and reached the state sectional finals for the 6th year in a row. This is the first year we had a freshman volleyball team. It was amazing seeing the pure joy on the girls' faces, especially after their first win. It was a very successful season with the 12 freshman girls. First team All-Conference American Division went to senior captain Riley Kenrick and freshman Bryn Mack. Second team, junior Jessica Theobald and freshman Ellie Garcia. Honorable mention went to juniors Julie Magnifiore and Abby Romanishin. Tennis had an overall record of 8-10. They advanced to the North 2 Group 1 state sectional semifinals. They advanced to the ECT quarterfinals. They were the number 6 ranked team in Group 1 in New Jersey. Evelyn Kogan and Margot DaCosta were first team All-SEC Liberty Division. Brielle Marchese and Isabella Bopp were second team. Mari DeAndre and Lily Farrell were honorable mention. Cheer. The VHS cheerleading program had a very successful season with a team of 52 varsity and JV cheerleaders. We heard at the board meeting earlier this fall season about all their accomplishments attending for the second time a UCA sleepaway camp in Greerly, Pennsylvania, where 16 girls were selected as UCA All-American cheerleaders and were offered the opportunity to cheer in Disney, which 5 of our girls participated in this month. Kamani McMillan, Taylor Garabell, Adriana Fasanella, Abby Caruso, and Cassidy Simpson. Our cheerleaders also performed at a Devils hockey game. During the season, the girls wowed the crowd weekly with their sideline cheers, advanced stunts, and show-stopping halftime routine. A highlight of the season was at the Foley Field Breast Cancer Showcase. The girls walked away winning for the 3rd year in a row with the Best Stunts Award. The VHS cheerleaders were also proud of the long-standing breast cancer showcase that featured all of our Verona cheerleaders, raising $5,200 for Minette's Angels. Recently, the VHS cheer program was awarded Team of the Week by the NJCDCA Cheer Association. Girls cross country were the SEC Liberty Division champions. The 11th graders were the champions at the Essex County Coaches Invitational, and they had a dual meet record of 8-3. First team Liberty Division went to Sienna Griffin and Ellen Waldron. Second team went to Francesca Getchian, Michelle Moonkai, Ellen Attal, Kylie Haggerty, and honorable mention went to Violet Palmer. Our boys soccer team had 63 boys in the program, a program high up from 58. Fundraisers included a car wash where the boys raised money for Bike Town Africa and food drive for Tony's Kitchen. The varsity team started the season with 2 independent games against Group 1 opponents and were 3-0 10 days into the season. After the Essex County tournament, they had a draw with Group 3 Montville at Montclair State University and a road win against Group 4 Livingston, which set the team on their way into the state tournament as the number 11 seed. The boys had victories at number 6 Woodridge, at number 3 North Arlington, and at number 2 seeded New Providence, all road wins, and put the Hillbillies into the Group 1 Sectional 2 finals where they fell to Glenridge. The boys soccer team finished their season with a record of 11-7-2. 6 players were named to the SEC Colonial Division team. First team, Patrick Mann and Joey Farmer. Second team, Kyle Moore, Luke Sampers, and Dean Rizzi. An honorable mention went to Joey Hauk. Field hockey. This year, our field hockey team moved up a division in the Essex Union Conference. Even with a more challenging schedule of games, they improved their season record from 10-8-1 last year to 13-7 this season. Some highlights were defeating A.L. Johnson in overtime, a team who went on to be Group 1 champions. Also beating Summit 3-2, a team which is a division above us, and holding MKA to 1-0 and Montclair to 3-1. They also finished as SEC Liberty Division champions with multiple awards to our players. SEC Liberty All-Conference first team was Danny Imbriano, Aubrey Paul, Bella Maglifiore, Caitlin Scelfo, Jane Sorger. Second team went to Taylor McLean, Gwen Neal, and Lucia Grant. Honorable mention, Ellie Gingo and Sam Veneer. The Essex Union White Division All-Conference first team was Danny Imbriano, Caitlin Scelfo, Taylor McLean. Second team was Ellie Gingo, Sam Veneer, and Lara Schwartz. Honorable mention was Lauren Scelfo. Overall, a great, great fall for our student athletes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. And looks like we had a great season all around. But the boys soccer program story was awesome. So congrats to the boys and the coach.
Anyone else? Thank you, Laura, for being here and for the positive updates. And congratulations to all our student athletes. Moving on to our committee reports. We had an athletics committee meeting, but Mrs. Pomerisi, I think, took care of everything. There was one signing that did happen, Frank Ori. He's signed for Quinnipiac to play baseball, right?
Excellent.
But I think you covered everything else that is on our agenda. So we're going to go on to our next. Thank you, Laura. On to facilities.
Yes, the facilities, we had met a couple weeks ago. We postponed this discussion from our last meeting to ensure that we had a full board. Couple of issues have come up that are worthy of note. One follow-up, the Lanning Avenue fencing program is, or the fencing project, I should say, excuse me, is underway. And everything's under control there. We have a couple of issues that I think we need to look at, and Mr. Cruz, please correct me where I get this wrong. But looming is the office space project at the HBW Middle School. And the question is, in terms of timeline, this would require a capital reserve transfer. That's something that we're going to have to approve. And the question, or the decision tree for us is going to have to be pretty soon on that, correct? So,
Yeah, so in order to address the need in the middle school, HB Whitehorn, we would have to probably make a decision before February in order to get that project underway over the summer. If not, then it's basically the timeline is kind of like holding off and making do with the space they have until the following 25-26 school year.
We haven't put any project out to bid or priced the project, have we?
So we did get preliminary numbers from the architect, and I believe the remodeling, I think it was about close to 300,000
that's correct.
for the remodeling of the middle school. And then that will give the school, believe it's 3 additional office space, 3 additional office spaces, and also a new layout of the, I guess, a more functional main office for the middle school. Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about just, I don't want to say just 3 new offices, but 3 new offices, $300,000 seems like an awful large chunk of money for that. And I know there's more, I would like to maybe see kind of, I'm looking at the document and there's no kind of layout that and maybe I missed it. That I can see what exactly we're looking to do.
I think the cost, because the way the room is laid out, they have to do a lot of HVAC upgrade and change so that they could create the offices there and give them airflow.
Okay.
So when we, a couple months ago, when we were kind of touched upon this and then we had went to see the library, I thought, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I thought that there was larger projects that were kind of coming down the pike at HB. Now, I don't know if it was just the HVAC or if there were other things and what, there was a conversation about possibly holding off on doing the office until we know. So it's, but is it just because of the HVAC or wasn't there another spacing issue that possibly had to be addressed?
I think what it was, why, I don't think, what it was that, spending the money to make a temporary office in the library media center, while we knew this project was on the horizon, was like a dual hit, double whammy, when
Okay.
we could have used that little office for Mr. Lancaster that we're actually using for, I mean, it really was minimal. It was carpet tiles and an air conditioning unit. I mean, a window air conditioner. So it wasn't a huge expense,
So this
knowing
Was the big
this was
project
the
coming
big
down the
project
pike.
coming
So
down the pike, yeah.
I guess a question and a comment. The first question is, what's our cap reserved at right now, approximately?
So we're at 2.3.
Million, okay. And the second comment is, I do think we need this, but we also don't know the full scope of what we're getting from the new developments in town. And that money might need to be put somewhere, and then I could see capital reserves playing a role in it. So I think until we get better data, it might be wise to wait till we get the data from up there and then, put the max so we can carry over and add to capital reserve for the next budget in there, just so we have that ready.
My only concern on that, Mr. Walker, is that if we kick this down the road, does that $300,000 become 350, 375, 400 at a year down the road? That's my one open question on that. And
I don't know the answer.
yeah, we don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, we need multiple crystal balls, which we don't have.
What the students are always going to be, the most important thing. And, I think our mission statement reflects that. Then, for as much as we appreciate the staff and we don't like to have them in, doubling up on offices or things like that. I think that the variable of what the students' needs are going to be from the apartment complex is just going to have to take precedent, I think. So I would recommend maybe wait until we get more information.
Also, we do have the, on the horizon, the apartments or whatever that building is gonna be in the children's,
The Spectrum
the
development.
Spectrum. I always want to say the children's house or something.
Yeah, it was York before that.
Yeah, which, we don't know what's
It's
gonna happen
coming
there,
from
but
there.
that's still. But I don't know, I'm kind of with you.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And right now, is Mr. Lancaster in that office?
He's in the
that we-
temporary
that
office.
office.
Separate.
Yeah, so he's in the temporary office and Mrs. Ramirez, Ms. Ramirez is in his old office. That was the issue.
guidance
She's
office.
a
Right.
guidance
Okay.
school counselor that didn't, he had a closet, not an
Right.
office. And I know we still have one of our child study team members that's kind of in a vestibule versus an office. I think that was another remedy we were seeking to fix. If you go into the child study team office there, there's kind of like an open area and then each has a little office. She's in the open area. So I guess she's got to find a place when she has to speak privately to a parent or when she has to test a student. But this is not a new problem. So it's not like 1 year or is going to make a big difference. But I do agree, we don't know what pricing is going to be. But while I'm speaking, update on the apartments, 3 students at HBW, 1 at VHS, 2 actually, but 1 was already a Verona resident. 2 at FM Brown, and I know we said we were going to place them at Brookdale, but there are implications for MLL, so they're at Brown because that's where our multilingual learner program is. And there are 3 at Lanning Avenue for our LSS and preschool program. And then 1 one sibling of one of those students that we can accommodate.
How many more, like, I think either you, Denise, or I don't know the answer, but how many more waves or how many more move-in set dates?
Well,
One more in February, definitely.
Yeah.
they're moving in, from my understanding, and the smaller apartment buildings that have the bigger units. So the
Right.
2 and 3 bedroom units are the ones that are currently people moving in, and you drive by. I think actually I texted
Mhm.
like on a Saturday, and I'm like, there's a U-Haul truck in front of there. So, when we started seeing people move in, and every time you go by, there's more people, which is great. I'm happy that the buildings are being utilized. But I think, and my feeling, and I think I've expressed it to you, is that I think we're gonna see more kids coming after the holidays. Cause I'm gonna be honest, if I had a kid and I was able to transport them to their elementary school through their holidays, their holiday parties, their holiday concerts, stuff, I would do that and then start them in their new school in January.
Right.
Although we are seeing some already started. I
And
expect
I've
there'll be
had
more.
requests for, at least one request, for a student who is in the next wave in the February move-in, if they can start the student in our schools sooner than later, right after the holidays, to get them acclimated. So they're not changing school and home and all of that at the same time. And the parent did offer to pay tuition until they move in.
Mr. Walker brings up a good point also, but I want to set that aside to get to the next project, and then I want to come back to Mr. Walker's point too. The other thing that we need to discuss, Ms. Ferrara, you touched on this a little bit. We have the ROD grant approval for the HVAC program, and that we have one more year to complete the project or lose the money. Now, my understanding is that we also need to do a capital reserve transfer for that. That's a much bigger project in the neighborhood of 520 to about $750,000. This project would not take place in 25, but we need to have a discussion relatively soon on approval for that so that it can start on time in summer of 26. So when
Yeah.
would we need to make?
HVAC that didn't get done during the referendum, correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is basically the 2019 referendum, the HVAC portion of the project was over budget. So the decision that was made at the time was anything that had split units or the older units in, we would leave in and then just address the rooms, the classrooms and shared spaces that actually didn't have any type of air conditioning or split units in them. So this ROD grant will now provide us, and this is almost like a 1.9 million, anywhere the numbers that the architect actually threw out, it's anywhere between 1.3 to 1.9. So it's a big range. I think the decision to like hold off, because I think early on when the ROD grants came out, a lot of districts went out, they went out to bid. It was very expensive because a lot of schools are doing mechanical projects. I think holding off and even holding off until summer of 26 might be effective, because I think at that point there's going to be less and less projects for HVAC. It's kind of like we're hitting a balloon now, and then hopefully it'll come down in that sense in the bidding. But we all know that inflation and labor costs goes up. The one thing is about kind of like making a decision. If we're really going to take advantage of this, because it's 40% that's funded by the state, and the board is only covering 60% of the entire project.
Is it gonna benefit the kids to have this project?
So
And staff?
it will, because eventually the units or even like the older models that we have, there's probably 2 or 3 sections that we will still have to go and replace it if we didn't have this grant funding anyway. And then the other part is that it's gonna also allow us to integrate the older units with the new system. So right now we're using 3 different we actually have a new system which came out of the referendum, And then we have a legacy of really old system that we're not able to actually access remotely. So the assistant of the assistant director of facilities, who was our HVAC coordinator, he has to physically log in at the site with those units. So this will also allow us to have one system to be able to integrate them and access them from one location, or even remotely if he's on a Saturday morning and someone actually calls in and say there's an issue, he's able to log in from home and address the issue in the system.
So it's fair to say this is something that even if it was no refund, we'd still probably have this somewhere on our priority list.
Absolutely. And even if we wouldn't have spent, let's say, $1 million, we probably would be spending at least $500,000 in addressing two major needs. One of the issues that we have here at the high school has a lot of the newer units, but the music room does have a condenser that's actually not working. So for example, for this one specifically, in the winter, the summers is fine, but the winter is actually they're not getting enough heat because only one unit is actually operating. So the BTU level of the energy that's supposed to be generated to heat that room doesn't get adequate output from it. So that means that for one more year, they're spending a winter similar to last winter where they'll complain, hey, it's kind of a little chilly, layer up, and it's not freezing, but it's a little cool. It's kind of like having the AC on in the winter.
Ryan, I hate to put you on the spot, but are you ever in that room, that music room?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't know. I just like I don't have
I'm
any.
not gonna put you, if you don't have
I'm
to.
not gonna put you on the spot. Can I
But I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah.
No, because I don't, listen, my daughter complains that her social studies room is too hot or too cold or too whatever. I mean, I think every child but if there is a need that needs to be addressed that is impacting, the ability of our students to learn and to do what they need to do, I think I would rather, if I had a choice, if you're telling me these are the two projects we can do.
There's one more thing we gotta discuss yet too. so.
Quick question before we move on, because I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So right now, this approval, or potential approval for capital reserves, we're looking for two separate approvals. One would be the ROD grant, and then a second would be for HB, although HB also has the HVAC issue in there, but that's a separate, right? Okay,
That is
I want
correct.
to make understand that there's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
overlay there.
it's two different projects.
Okay.
One thing that we could do is maybe scale up and take advantage of actually saying, let's do the two projects, talk to the architect, let's bid it out, and kind of like overlap
That's because
some
that
of
was
that
my
work.
next part, is that if, I know nothing about HVAC, so I'm gonna just go on record with that. Well, not much, but if we are doing that HVAC work, then is that something that, like, if we don't do the HB office work with it, we're gonna kind of wind up, for lack of a better term, shooting ourselves in the foot, because then we're gonna have to do it and it's gonna be a higher cost because now they're re-ripping the walls and doing all that. Is it fair to say that when looking at these two projects, that's?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna circle back to Mrs. Brazella's question. Yeah. No, I'm just like, no, it's fine. No, it's like with the heating at VHS specifically, I mean, I think it's just like there's a lot of variation in the temperature of different rooms. Like you'll have a room that's directly next to it, and it's like the contrast between like the temperature is like kind of crazy. I feel like that's just like, I don't know, a lot of people do complain about it. Personally, I don't personally have any problems with it, but it is definitely something that people mention when they walk in. It's like, oh, this room is so hot compared to the last classroom I was in, etc. So I think that's just something to consider.
Our man on the scene. One other issue that we need to follow, and this is down on the second page of the facilities agenda. We have continuing projects at VHS, HBW, Brown, and then also district-wide that we need to also start planning on it. At the high school, it's the lower field bleachers issue, which there's a link to the pictures of that. Ms. Prisco, you're well aware of this situation. We have the press box issue as well, along with looming artificial turf replacement at the high school. There are some roof wall panel issues at HBW. We have the info folder attached there. The gym floor replacement at Brown. And then, well, yeah, I'll just pause it at that. So at the three buildings, we need to decide which direction we're going. How much more do we want to kick the can down the road on the press box? And the artificial turf thing is going to have to happen one way or the other, by 2023.
So we do have a $9.5 million referendum that's coming off the actual bond that we just refunded and went out and brought some savings to taxpayers on. So that's going to come off, meaning that the board could go out and with the approval of the Verona residents, we could go out and actually secure another bond for the 9.5 million and actually do some projects that's the district needs at zero cost to the taxpayers. So meaning that the tax base stays flat with that 9.5.
That's effective 2030 though.
That's 2030. So then that will be in 2030. So that's 5 years from now, and more than likely we'll have to start planning like in 3 years from now, 3 to 4 years, and really have that. So by 2028, that's when we'll be kind of like hitting the books on trying to get all those things secured.
My concern is that when one of the referendum and how to do such a large referendum is that the boards over the years kick the can down the road on some basic maintenance items to save money in short term. And now we all saw the facilities before the referendum. I think that we should definitely look to be spending money before 2030 on some of these items, because some of these items I don't think can wait, like particularly HVAC stuff. I would like to see maybe some sort of maybe facilities or the facilities, whoever can put together kind of what are our top 3 priorities, and that or just prioritize everything and we start hammering down the list until we run out of funds or will or whatever.
So we have that list. We have
The
to
long
submit
range.
the long-term facility planning list. If you could share
Good.
that to all
Yeah.
board members, that might help the next,
So we could-
unless we need an answer now, Mr. Boone.
No, we could share the long range facility plan, which has basically all the projects and the needs of the district. One of and mechanical wise, which is going to be like the largest cost for the district, will probably be like boilers. So those are the things. So the high school has new boilers. I believe Landing Avenue has new boilers, but HBW will be the next one that will need the boilers replaced, and that might be something we've been just patching certain things, and that might be something if those boilers are not able to make it to 2030, then the other option besides capital reserves will be like an ESIP project, and then taking out almost like a lease payment where we pay it off in X
And
number of years.
even if we, people don't want to say this word, but if we went to referendum, right? If you lived in this town, the value of your home has gone up a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot over the years. And the school system's a big part of that, or at least the reputation of the school system. So if we had to go to vote, I think the people in Verona would want really nice things for their kids in the schools, and I would be okay with putting it to the will of the people to get everything fixed if we could.
But even so, if we went for a referendum, would that have to be in the 5 years, or are you referring to one prior to the?
Additional one that would.
You're
Additional.
doing an additional one before that, yeah, an additional one.
Mhm. So, Mr. Boone, just commenting about the press box, because on the chart that I have from the committee report, it says that the press box is critical and needs to be addressed. And I know, Mr. Cruz, you said that the architect said it could get through another, but I would prefer something more substantial than just his word. I would prefer that we have something in writing because first we have people that are standing up there, so we want to make sure that it's safe. And, you know, I don't know if what they did, their patchwork is substantial, so I would want to make sure if we're going to kick that down the road, that it's definitely safe for who's ever up there for sporting events or band events or whatever, who's ever up there.
So as far as functionality, the box itself, it's able to do what they need for the events. The issue that with the inspection, it was always really the structure of the staircase, and then at games when there was multiple people on the steps, that was also like a hazard. So one of the things that the inspector recommended was limiting the number of people, and I think that's right now there's signage that's on there that's the maximum capacity in on the structure, whether it's on the staircase and in the box, is 5. So as long as we don't surpass that capacity of 5 people, it's sound. The other piece is that even though before I guess the staircase, the question was that there was some sections that were a little wobbly. It's still sound. It's almost like what the architect explained. It's almost like like a bridge where there is some level of flexibility, but doesn't mean that it's going to collapse or there's a concern that it's not safe. So right now that was his piece. His recommendation was that if the school board wanted to wait until the turf field to be replaced, that might be something that could be done simultaneously. The issue is that even looking at the timeline to actually have it have the project done before season, realistically is not, we will lose it for one season. So we will have to have a temporary structure and not have any game, a press box during those games. It will be like kind of like some kind of offside
Yeah, like
box.
Schools played football before press boxes were invented, right? Like it'll get done
Right.
for a year.
Yeah. So then that's the only thing is like if as long as he wasn't sure if there was going to be a need of, hey, we're not going to have a real game without the press box, but if we can, then that is an option. We will lose it for a season.
Safety goes also the lower field bleachers.
Mhm.
It seems to be a
So
big-
that
a
is
big problem.
that is
Safety
also a capital project because there is kind of like drainage issues with that. The reason why there's those actually are concrete bleachers. There's a lot of cracks in them, and it's just the way that water runs off. So the recommendation is to have those bleachers replaced, get aluminum bleachers, and then have some drainage designed there with some actual drains to actually address the water that goes down.
How old is
lower
that
field.
structure? You don't know?
So now that is kind of, I think, similarly to the office and the the HVACs. If we have to replace the turf, is that water impacting the turf negatively that's draining down into the field? And is that gonna then, if we put bleaches, do we know if when we redo the turf, has there been any conversation about that or any?
So I'm pretty sure that will be something that the engineers will look at. It's because we have turf in both the upper and lower field. So I'm sure that the water is actually coming from the upper field down and
Through the bleachers, the concrete and then
the
into
concrete
dirt?
and yeah. So it's always making its way downhill. I'm not sure if they
The
are,
turf?
if they were both.
The turf,
Fix the upper with the.
the turf was
sinkhole.
done at the same time, I think. I think the turf was done under the same referendum though.
Yeah, but they had to go back and redo the upper one.
The sinkhole was during grass, not
Was
Not-
it during, I thought the field turf was on it.
There was,
Okay, okay.
To do the
Well,
bleachers or we,
You know,
because it seems
this,
like 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Right, but
Well,
5 years
this-
seems like a very long time
the-
to fix these things.
this brings me to the kind of the more existential question that I think Mr. Walker was getting at with the, the lack of the crystal ball on the impact from the new development is every financial decision that we discuss, every financial decision we make, I feel we are handcuffed by saying, well, we don't know the financial impact of, we don't know what we don't know even of that financial impact. So I feel that any decision we make as part of these discussions on, let's break it into the three buckets of projects that we have. I think we're questioning ourselves, second guessing ourselves because we don't know that financial impact. And I think we also need to come to grasp with how we handle that unknown.
Say we did everything we just talked about. Like say we just said yes to want to do everything. Would that be less than 2.3 million? It's in our cap already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have the ability. It's just we're rolling the dice in the back end saying, we might be running low and then this board's gonna have to commit for the next 10 years to just reinvest the maximum allowable and build up that reserve again.
And let me just correct, when you say everything, I'm only talking about the HVAC project, HBW, the remodeling of the offices and then also the press box. So the cap reserves that we have will be enough and we'll probably have still a small tiny cushion after doing those three pieces. So
We could do that. Again, I haven't really made my mind up as to how I would want to advocate either way. We could do that, and then if new needs come up, then this board would just have to be kind of comfortable with, hey, the next step's going to be we're going to look to put a referendum out to the people and say here's exactly what we need and why.
Or alternatively, statement A, B there is all the field related projects. Do we just tie that to an extension of the current referendum and then do the other two projects, giving us a larger cushion?
5 years on the turf and those bleachers?
So the bleachers right now, what they're doing is they continue doing patch. So it's more of a and some of that work is actually handled internally by our maintenance staff. So
Okay.
it's more like patching cement, patching the cracks. But then every year those cracks they continue. It's just putting a Band-Aid and
San
then just
Andreas
replacing.
fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Might help if, this is gonna be the same board after reorg, so maybe the January meeting or whatever, you could, be prepared.
Yeah.
If you can give us a visual of option A, option B, option C, option D, side by side, and then if we could kind of just whittle them out one by one until we get to something that we kind of have consensus with, or we think is a clear, or we just have to vote if we have to, but it'd be
Well,
nice to have consensus.
Yeah, because my worry is really 5 years is, to me, seems very long
Right.
to wait to make any of these decisions. So although we know that that's coming, we need to make these
Right.
decisions and figure out how to fix this before that time.
And I think also we, to that point, Mr. Walker, is to have a sense of what option A, option B leaves us in our, in regards to the reserve, so we know where we stand.
Okay. I'll definitely have that for the board for the next meeting.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to public comments on agenda action items. If there's anyone from the public that would like to come up to the podium, please state your name. And you have 3 minutes. It's anything that we're voting on. Seeing none. Moving on to discussion items. Anyone have anything for new or old business?
I just have, we've discussed it over the years that I've been on the board, is having a joint meeting with the town council. Especially given our current conversation about the new development and that's being done at Spectrum and the new development that's being populated right now. I think that it would behoove us to invite the town council to a joint meeting in our lovely high school. You know, to talk about not just the pilot stuff, I would also, I think, talk about some of the issues that have been raised regarding the memo of understanding between the town and the board about maintenance of the fields and kind of maybe piece out some pieces of that that maybe, you know, weren't necessarily addressed fully in the current memo of understanding. You know, just so that we have this discussion sooner rather than later. So I think maybe um, if you feel it's appropriate, President Prisco, if you think we should issue an invitation to the entire council and town manager to come to a meeting and let's talk about it.
With this, just to be clear, this would be a public meeting?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we can have it here, we can have it in the auditorium, we can,
Have it.
you know, we
Okay.
can find a place.
Definitely. Sounds like, thank you. Sounds like a good idea.
Just in that
Mhm.
same vein, we, Ms. Rosella and I went to the delegate assembly on Saturday and our resolution passed 97%. So while we know that has very little teeth.
Can you just reiterate the resolution, just
Yeah.
public?
So it was, so the way that it works really is as a school board member, delegate, or as a school board member, you have an opportunity to put forth resolutions to the delegate, the NJSBA, so the New Jersey School Board Association. Those resolutions then get voted on by the caucus, right? Any resolutions that pass, then those resolutions have the possibility to go in front of legislature. And that's kind of how it works, and that's how mandates and this all kind of get put in. So we wrote a resolution as a board requesting that pilot funds be shared with school boards, or that at least school board members or superintendent has an opportunity to sit and be part of the decision-making for it.
Superintendent or his or her designee would sit as an equal member of any pilot board, I guess, or pilot group to discuss future pilot projects within a municipality that could potentially impact attendance at school, population for school. So this would allow Ms. Giuseppe or whoever she decides to, or require that she is invited to these meetings, and she would have an equal say and equal vote as to whether a pilot project should move forward to the full town council for a vote. We did also have initially have a piece in there that the school board would also have to approve any
That was too much.
anything, but that was a bridge too far.
But there is something in there about a payable rate.
Yes,
Right,
that
so-
that any pilot funds received would be shared with the school board and any pilot funds and community funds, because it's not just the pilot fund. Sometimes these developers also provide community funds for parks, recreation, whatever, that they would be shared with the school board in the equal rate as to
The tax-
the tax levy. So in Verona, that would be like 58%. I'm there. So, you know, listen, is it gonna change a whole lot right now? No,
No,
but it is.
but I think it's important to note, especially when looking at the other votes that came in, it was by far the highest.
Yeah, and even
vote.
the military guy.
The military, yeah,
Yeah.
I know it beat, there was one resolution where, as far as like excused absences,
Mhm.
if someone was enlisted in the military, right now, their absences are not,
So like if they have to
Granted,
go and enlist and then they have to go and do all their testing and their, you know,
it counts as an
I-
absent, the state doesn't.
it counts as an absence.
Yes.
The state doesn't
And
recognize.
this pilot fund resolution passed higher than that. It was
It was-
incredible.
Yeah,
But my point really being is that aside from New Jersey School Board, I think the fact that it did have such a high rate, I'd like to believe that this is really impacting a lot of school districts across the state. And because of that, I think that we may, or I'm hopeful at least, that we may see some movement here, because this is not just talk and things that we would like to see done or be done. This is really impacting budgets, which really impact students.
Right, and we weren't the only school board actually to put forth a pilot, a similar type of resolution. Ours was just chosen as the one to be voted on by the delegates, so, so we'll
That's how-
see what
we'll keep you
happens then.
posted.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated and sorry, totally unrelated and much more pedantic. On the uh, paper of record, are we investigating an alternative as the print version of the Star Ledger will be no more effective? I believe it's February. Okay.
Actually, one of the other resolutions that
Yeah.
was discussed.
In
Was-
great
Yeah.
length,
It was
a
great, like,
ridiculous.
people were very.
So it's gonna pass through possibly that you're no longer gonna have to publish it in print. And that
That elec-
digital will be,
yeah.
it's not there
It's
yet.
not there
but-
yet. Like there was a lot of discussion over if it was digital, how would a school board possibly keep an
Record.
accurate record of what was published?
Right. So,
Print PDF? So,
Thank you. I just had a couple of things I wanted to
Yeah,
comment.
along those lines, there's a lot that was published on our website during the referendum that I can't find records up here.
Mhm.
So if you're gonna, they do have to figure out on how to help districts know how to do that.
Do that, right.
Because if somebody's not printing it out and filing it, the minute it comes down off the website, unless you have a weird cookie that allows you to access that, it can disappear.
go to the Wayback Machine, right? The Wayback.
I mean, even if it comes off a web page, it's still out there. So it's. Yeah,
Easy,
so
right,
you
right.
just have to have a mechanism of where that those are being archived.
I just wanted to, there's a couple things I just wanted to just comment on. I wanted to thank Colonel Joe Simonelli and his wife Betty. He was a 1983 VHS graduate and also graduated in 1987 from West Point. And he donated and installed the plaque over as you walk in by the gym side door for all the graduates from Verona High School that graduated from West Point. So Verona High School has six alumni from VHS that have graduated. Our last graduate was Christian Dionisio he graduated from VHS in 2020. Also on Wednesday, two of our VHS graduates, Joseph Nyler, class of 2019, and Marcos Chupak, class of 2022, were sworn in as Verona police officers. So congratulations to those two fine gentlemen. And also last night, I went to the Verona Environmental Commission at the town. Thank you to Jessica Pearson for inviting us. And our two students, I was blown away. We really have just incredible talent here between our academics, our sports, our band, our arts, everything. But Nia Polari and Cece Manis did their presentations last night. And I know they are up on the Verona Environmental Commission's website to see their presentations, but wow, extremely impressive. Congratulations to them. They did an outstanding job and their futures are definitely bright. So I just wanted to comment on that, but that's it. On that. Anyone else have anything? All right, moving on to any correspondence?
No.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, I need a motion to approve our resolutions for personnel from A1 through A6.
So,
Motion by Mr. Boone, seconded by
second?
Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Rizal,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our resolutions for education. Need a motion to approve resolutions B1 through B7.
I'll move it.
Motion by Mrs. Brazella, seconded by
I'll second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions?
Just for B1, like, I'm gonna vote yes tonight for this, but, for next year's budget, if we are gonna be looking to making substantial reserves, I don't know if we need to send 4 people to Texpo. I like the fact that, you know, the head of technology is going to that, at least 1 academic specialist, but 3 seems like a little bit much. So that's it.
And I just want to, I don't know whether you noticed, but B4, 5, B6, B4, 5, and 6 were resolutions that, or motions that changed a little bit, and I just wanted to explain what was happening. So with B4, your original agenda that went to you had a rescind. This was an additional, this is an additional addition of a para OT, PT, and speech for this out-of-district placed child. Not a, at first it looked like it was a new price, but this is additional to what we already approved last month. And then B5 and B6, these were both just a change in the number of days that the students attended these out-of-district placements. So, and for B4, I'm not sure if the board knows, but this is a McKinney-Vento case. The state will charge us back the cost for educating this child at this out-of-district school. Because this is, you know, an $80,000 price tag. And that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to our athletics resolutions. I need a motion to approve resolution C1 through C3. Motion by
I'll move it.
Mr. Waka, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Frizella. Are there any discussions?
I just want to clarify one thing here as well. So the stipend position that we're voting on tonight is listed on the agenda as January through June. But in speaking with Mr. Cogdill today, the advisor has been meeting with the students regularly since September. So we'll revise this on the next, we'll add to it to give the other half of the stipend. The advisors are now logging in and recording their meetings in Genesis. And so this should be the last year where we have any confusion as to what's meeting when. But this will be amended. We'll actually have a second motion to pay the other half of the stipend position on next board meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to facilities, I need a motion to approve resolutions D1. Motion by
So moved.
Mrs. Ferrara, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Boone. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to resolutions for finance, I need a motion to approve resolutions E1 through E3. Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions? No? Move, Mr. Cruz, if you could
Mr. Walker?
call roll.
Mrs. Frizella?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Oh, and I just want to thank the Landing Avenue SCA for their generous donation.
Very generous.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to resolutions for governance and policy, I need a motion to approve resolution F1. Motion by
I'll move it.
Mrs. Brazella,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Boone. Any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella?
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar?
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please state your name and you have 3 minutes. You could speak on anything. Nothing from the public. We have no confidential. I just want to wish everyone a very wonderful and great holiday season, healthy and happy.
And restful.
Restful, peaceful. Our next scheduled public meeting is on our reorganization meeting on January 7th, 2025. beginning with confidential session at 6 PM and public session at 7 PM in the Verona High School Learning Commons. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Motion by Mrs. Virzella, seconded by Mrs. Ferrara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is 8:15.